And we are back with Best Books Ever. Yeah, we're back doing it again. We got the next part of Well of Ascension, part 3, and we are close to the end. And I think this one, this part really shows it. It seems obvious, but there is a lot of stuff, and I think it just does a really good job. I think we talked about this last time with Brandon's, his just way of writing. Maybe it was last time, I don't know. But just like some things, if I were to be overly critical, I think we talked about this with the last book, maybe. If we're really trying to be critical of his writing, I think there are some things that are a little too heavy-handed. You know, um, some things which we haven't really seen the payoff of that I obviously won't spoil. But there are certain things where they just keep kind of repeating, and it's like, okay, I get it. I mean, I feel like that does happen in real life, right? Like you don't ever only say something once, but with it being the end of the book, it ending the way it did, clearly setting up. Obviously there's still a little bit more book left, but clearly setting up the last book. We got some big questions though, and I think we'll get to that. But starting off with the end, as we always do, a lot of stuff happened right at the end. I mean, we cover full parts, and luckily for this series in particular, Brandon actually has split up his book into parts, so it does sometimes have that like TV sort of feeling where every time you finish an episode of like a episode of a show that's more dramatic, more of like dramatic writing, like Game of Thrones or something like that. They always try to make the ending something big, not necessarily like a grand cliffhanger, but maybe some piece of information or leading you to what we're gonna want to pick up with like questions and answers for next episode. And so, I think us having this natural split in parts with the book, and obviously he's writing them in a certain way to make the end of a part meaningful and up in the air with a bunch of possibilities, helps us, right? So like with this one in particular, I think this one is even more so than most parts that we've finished. So it ends with a lot of stuff. So I guess we'll start with the more laid back things that happen. Elend and Vin get married. Great thing right there. Big moment for Vin's character progression. Obviously, we can go all the way back to, the first page. Well, I guess she wasn't mentioned in the first page, but, the first page of the first book all the way up until now. But I think a little more recently, she has been having this huge struggle with trust and self-doubt, and it's only gotten worse as the series has gone on. A lot of little things happen to kind of pile up, especially in this part. But for it to get to the end and her be the one to be like dying, not in grave danger, Sazed, kind of alleviates that very early in the interaction. But even for her to be in that state and everything to have just happened, and her to be like, I'm thinking clearer than I've ever been before. Do you know any wedding ceremonies? What's the quickest one? Ellen to be kind of freaked out, and her to be like, stop talking. I love you. Do you love me? All right. Is it done? Are we married now? I thought that was very nice. Obviously just the sentiment, but then also, like I said, for her to finally realize that she's always looking at things the wrong way. I feel like there's so many points in this entire series where you can say that about Vin, about like, Vin, you're looking at this the wrong way, you're thinking about this the wrong way, and like for her to almost become self-aware and be like, oh, I have been doing that. And to get the point to be like, no, like, it doesn't have to, you know, her and Zane's whole logic was very lonely type of logic. Um, there's even the one point in this book where he comes in and he just keeps spouting about how, like, oh, you're too attached to him, Elend's using you, all that stuff, and you could have killed all those Allomancers by yourself, but you were too busy worried about him. And at that point, it's just like, but am I not supposed to have any loved ones, family, friends, anything like that? Because by your logic, I would always be putting myself in that predicament where I may be surrounded by, again, loved ones, and something bad happens and I can't go crazy because I don't want to hurt someone else. By your logic, you're saying that I should just be I should be like a ghost. Never talk to anyone, never love anything, never want anything. It's terrible. It's very bad. I think both of them, that has been a very obvious comparison between those two, right? I think that's one of the main points, if not the main point of the Zane character even existing, is for us to see, okay, they have come up very tough, very rough lives, but they kind of split at one point. And Zane never quite learning to love, learning to trust, and Vin finally getting something like that. And Zane just purely just not being able to understand what that means. You can try to, it's like talking to a brick wall where it's like, no, you don't understand. I love them. I trust them. And he just equates that to, like, he hears that, it rattles around in his brain, and he understands that as you're being used by them. It's like, no, that's not. No. You just fundamentally don't understand what that means. And then even, like, when he left Straff, in his mind he was like, I love him. But it's that raised the question to me, where does he really love him? Does he even understand what that means? Because then you look at Vin and it's like, you're not quite transitioning. But then again, if that is the only person he loves right now, then he just probably just copies and pastes that with every other relationship that he sees. And in his specific one, he was being used by Straff. He was literally the tool, the knife. And so maybe that's the only type of love that he knows, and so he just kind of brings that to everyone else's situation. That's not at all like Elend. Elend is not using Vin. Like, the closest he's ever come was when the whole, like, Church of the Survivor thing, which was very tough, and it's, you think maybe we should have talked to Vin beforehand, but anyway, yeah. So they're married now. That was a big tangent on that. Let's see. I want to talk about Sazed and what he did at the end there, but I think I'll leave that for last, because that'll go into predictions for the end of the book. So we'll put a pin in that one. Vin killing Zane was huge, right? Very glad. Hated Zane by the end of it. Probably, definitely the most frustrating character in this whole series so far. Very glad that he's dead. It did reveal some things, though. One, Vin, very powerful. Very, very powerful, very clever. Does not give herself enough credit. Clearly, she's special. We are under the assumption that the running theory right now is that she's the hero of ages. That's definitely what Sazed believes, and I think even Vin believes it to a certain extent. And if that's the case, I think that would explain a lot of things, like how she defeated the Lord Ruler the way she did. She seemingly pulled from the mists. We're not quite sure if that's how that worked or not. Piercing copper clouds. And now, this new thing she did, which is basically have an answer for ATM. Now, it's kind of confusing, I think, to think about, and even more confusing to explain. The way I read it was, or the way I understood it, I guess, was that Zane used ATM against her, right? So Vin was going to throw a punch or whatever. Zane saw that that was going to happen because he can see a few seconds in the future. And so he before she even like cocked back or whatever, he reacted to her punch because he's gonna get out in front of it, right? So Vin, normally you would just do it and you would whiff the punch, right? But what Vin did was Vin paid attention to his very subtle movements and basically used Zane's reaction to see what she was going to do before she even knew what she was going to do. So she also kind of looked into her own future and then changed it, did something else. But then Zane was already reacting to the first possibility, and that was his downfall because now there's a second possibility. So, like, Vin basically, like, she basically like pump faked him, I guess. Because even Zane, when he was dying, he confirmed it where he said that her like shadow or whatever, her like future shadow split at the last second. Which is crazy. Again, like we already know Vin's special. One, she's the main character, so obviously there's gonna be something there. But, with her like piercing copper clouds and being able to apparently draw from the mists, kill Lord Ruler, all that stuff. For her to now, again, not sure if she's going to be able to replicate it ever. I mean, again, like, as of right now, we don't know of any other Mistborns that exist, so maybe she won't ever have to do that again. She won't ever have to, combat ATM. But, like, I don't know, man. It's just crazy because, like, I think I talked about this one of the previous parts. I don't know. Probably when Vin discovered Duralumin. It's probably when I went into depth about this, but so many things that Vin has done and Vin knows that Kelsier didn't know and didn't do. It's like, man, because in the first book, we always looked at Kelsier as like the expert, and he knows everything. He is the teacher to the main character. But now we're sitting here almost done with the second book. There's been almost more pages in this series without Kelsier than with Kelsier. And, if Kelsier could somehow see Vin and just see like all the discoveries she's made and all these things that she's done that Kelsier couldn't even comprehend. Kelsier had no idea how to defeat the Lord Ruler. He had no idea. I guarantee you, he had no idea about the Lord Ruler using feruchemy and allomancy. Didn't really look. I'm sure he didn't really look too far into the logbook. The way Vin got obsessed with it. Duralumin didn't know how the 11th metal worked. Couldn't pierce copper clouds. Like all these things, and it's like, I don't know. It's just kind of crazy to think about. And then also with OreSeur, big thing there. He's not Tensoon, or he always was, or he mostly always was. Right around when the whole Wolfhound thing happened, big reveal, right? I'm not sure. I feel like the first time I read this, so the only other time, definitely didn't guess Tensoon. I feel like by this point in the book, you're kind of not thinking about that anymore. Like there's so many things have happened, and even Vin, again at this point in the book, chapter 39 through 48, not a whole lot of like her investigating anymore. Like it kind of ended with Demu at the last part. And I'm trying to scan my notes, and I'm like, I don't really think there was a moment in this entire part where Vin was like, all right, let's try to look into the Kandra more. I don't think it happened at all because there's just so many things that have happened, and it's like, that spy isn't really my main focus right now. Like, there's a lot of other pressing things happening. Um, so for it to end up being OreSeur, who's actually Tensoon, it makes so much sense, right? Everything makes sense about how close, like, they weren't only close in like their circle, but he was with Vin the whole time, probably the most important person he could have been close to. And then also just never suspected. Like, I don't remember any of the characters being like, what's going on with OreSeur? Could it be him? No one ever gave it a second thought. Which is funny because that's kind of the reason why Vin liked that OreSeur, the Conjurer, was a dog. It's like, oh well, no one's ever gonna think twice about me always having you around because you're my pet. But it kind of worked against her. um, so. But that was obviously a good reveal, and then for it to twist again immediately into her favor, for him to kind of be like, read between the lines, and was able to help her out, and we know now that conjure fear allomancers because they can somehow control them, um, which is crazy. I don't know if we'll see more of that. I actually don't remember. I've read this series before, but I don't remember if we see that come up again. Because it's great, and also it's Vin, so Vin's the only one who knows about it, and I don't think Vin would ever do that again unless it was like dire, kind of like it was now. Um, but again, like her whole thing with trust. I think her knowing this piece of information and being close to Tensoon, even though Tensoon kind of betrayed her, he betrayed her at the end. I don't think that she would just abuse that secret, especially given the fact that she knows it because he told her. Like, he went against the contract. He went against his master to help save her. Like, that's huge. But that was big, obviously. So there's that. Let's see. So we got Vin killing Zane. Oh, Zane. One more thing about Zane, actually. Yeah, you probably two more things that I can think of. One, Zane had a spike in his chest. Seemingly only one spike. I feel like if he had more, we would have heard him think that when that was being revealed to us. But I feel like that changes a lot, where he has a spike in his chest. So we're assuming that's somewhat like an Inquisitor, because the only other time we've heard of a character having a spike in them is Inquisitors and Lord Ruler. Well, no, the Lord Ruler didn't have. Did Lord Ruler have spikes in him? Lord Ruler only had the. No. He didn't. I remember Marsh wanting to kill him the same way Marsh killed the other Inquisitors, but then being like, "Oh, there's no spike." It's like, "Oh, that was a great guess, Marsh." No, he didn't. He had a lot of the ferrochemy stuff pierced in him, but he didn't have any spikes. So we've only seen Inquisitors, and so I'm assuming that's again, unless it was just some tragic accident. I'm assuming there's some like ferrochemy, or not ferrochemy. Well, yeah, ferrochemy / Inquisitor type stuff that happened with him, which would explain why he was so strong. But again, I think, yeah, again, we don't really know how the Inquisitors work yet, but we know that Inquisitor is very, very powerful. So having one spike, I mean, maybe do spikes equal power? Like, if you have like 9 spikes, is that crazy? I'm just assuming one spike is like not as good as Inquisitor, but still gives them power for some reason. So if that is the case, it would explain why he was more powerful, aside from the fact that he trained as a Mistborn for a lot longer than Vin has. But that would explain a lot. But then that just answers more, just asks more questions, where it's like, when did that happen? Is Straff the one who did that? Why did Straff do that? How did Straff do that? Because, I mean, again, the the Inquisitor people, I guess, race. A lot of mysteries. No one really knows. I mean, other Inquisitors do know. I mean, remember at the end of the last book, I think, is when Marsh sort of had a comment about, like he basically said that he knows how Inquisitors are made, but he would rather not get into it. And so with that, it's like it's a secret. So if Straff did somehow, again, like how did he get that info? And again, I still don't know exactly how that affected him, but it would make a lot of sense. Um, Opens up the door to have other spikes where it's like, is having spikes that bad? Like, would it be beneficial for Vin to get a spike, or my mind just went blank of every Alamancer character in the book, like Ham or Breeze or whatever, would be beneficial for them to get one. Maybe can only Mistborn get them? Well, no, that doesn't make sense because most, if not all, Inquisitors weren't Mistborn. I mean, Marsh wasn't a Mistborn when he got his spikes. So, again, a lot of questions about the rules and what that actually means. Again, if it wasn't important, I don't think Brandon would have written that part of Zane's thoughts. So clearly something is happening there. Speaking of Inquisitors, there was a brief thing where the one boy from whatever told Elend that he saw an Inquisitor. I think they said there was other maybe whispers of an Inquisitor, but like this guy, he's like, hey, this kid right here, if he said it, it's true, And they kind of brushed past it, Elend was like, all right, we're gonna put more people on watch or whatever, but my first thought was, I mean, it can only be one of two things. It's Marsh or it's not Marsh, Marsh would make sense because, I mean, one, he's a character that we know and love. We also saw him earlier in this book with Sazed. Marsh was very, very adamant that Sazed get back here. It was like, no, everything important is happening in Luthadel. You have to go there. So if he feels that way, maybe he also felt that he should be here at some point as well. Yeah, and then like I said, or it's not Marsh, but what would that mean? I mean, I feel like at that point, if an Inquisitor that's not Marsh is there, that's dangerous because that to me says the Inquisitors are like coming back to Luthadel to maybe try to take back control of the central dominance to then spread their like reach to all of the final empire. That would be scary. That would be another another variable in this that we do not need. We have Set. Well, no, I guess Set and his army left because Vin and Vin and Zane kind of took care of that. But we still have Straff to deal with, the Kolos, our own people starving and freezing to death. So having even just one one rogue Inquisitor in our midst, not ideal. So we have that, and then yeah, we got a few more things. I guess we'll mention the Kolos. We'll go there. We do see more of them. The important thing I wanted to latch onto though was the Kolos being paid, mixed with the one Kolos saying, "You think we're Kolos? We are human." Them getting paid, them wearing clothing, very weird behavior. This isn't something that I think anyone has ever seen before. Like it looks like the Kolos are trying to be humans, or they think they're humans. There's something in them. I don't know if they're like delusional, if it's just their weird Kolos brains. Maybe them having a human leader in the One King, Elend's friend, is like making them think they're humans or something. I don't know. But that is scary because they're not. They're most certainly not humans. So for them to think that's like, what are the next steps in their thinking? They already talked. I mean, the one already talked to Elend and was like, "We're human. We're gonna kill all of you and then live in your city." It's like, okay, first off, that's scary. I don't want you telling me that, especially how like matter of fact he said it, right? Um, but also just like it's it's weird to hear a Kolos uh, speak like a human, I guess. I don't really know how else to say it because, again, we don't know too much about them, but from what we've gleaned in the book from other characters and stuff, um, they seem to just be like this, like ravage, just wild, unpredictable people. So for one of them at least, and seemingly all the other ones feel that way as well because they are all accepting payment. They are all wearing clothes and everything. Um, for one of them to just say it bluntly and say, "Oh no, we're not Kolos. We are human, and we're gonna take your city, live in your homes, eat your food." It's just like it's so strange, you know. Um, hey, I mean, a lot of people are Sazed and Elend or whatever. They're kind of tying that to possibly the Lord Ruler. Another thing that the Lord Ruler was doing, kind of suppressing those urges. Making them as subservient as one can when it comes to Kolos. But we don't know. Maybe they're gonna rise up now, and strange that they think they need justice, but I guess they don't really know how to get money. Justice giving them fake money. We know there's like painted wood or whatever, but it's interesting. And their army too. It seems like they're getting a lot closer to uh, attacking. Right now, Justice has them kind of at their on a leash. He seems to be like very close to cracking though. But again, we're still in the middle of, is Straff going to go first? Are Cole's going to attack first? We'll see. Yeah. And then one more thing. What else do we have? Oh yeah, another scene that could be forgotten is Sazed and Tindwyl. They were researching and they noticed that a portion of one of their notes was ripped, torn away. Can't find the missing piece of the page. And then they start scrambling and they start looking at other copies of that same thing, and the same sentence was ripped away from all their copies. The copies, the initial rubbing, and the sentence was, I don't think I wrote it down verbatim, but it was a sentence that said, Alendi cannot be allowed to reach the Well of Ascension and take the power for himself. Something like that, right? Interesting. There's a couple questions there. One, who was doing that? I mean, clearly it was intentional, If it was just random rips of different sentences, then it'd be like, oh, someone was meddling. And then we have a whole other branch to follow. But with this one, it's like specifically that sentence. Who would do that? Who even knows about their I don't think anyone knows about their research. So it would have to be, like Vin or something. Or maybe just some other spy or something. But again, like, who though? Like, I don't think anyone in the city knows or would care about something like that. You have outside people like Set or Straff, and it's like, I don't even like, none of that makes sense. So like, who was doing it? Why that sentence in particular to try to like take the information away from Sazed and Tindwyl doesn't really make sense. And then even I forget. I'm pretty sure it was Sazed who said this. Where he was like, "Yeah, but wouldn't the person know that we're keepers and like we can?" I can just instantly recall what that missing sentence was. So again, it's someone who either somehow knows about their research but doesn't know that Sazed and or Tindwyl are keepers, or doesn't care. But even then, it's like it's worthless. You imagine even if someone burned all of the copies completely, Sazed and Tindwyl, well, Sazed more than Tindwyl because, Sazed made sure to commit to memory. I'm sure Tindwyl did as well, but they could just recall it. So again, there's just some questions there of like, who did that, why they do it, how they get in there. And nothing I can think of really makes sense. Because if you rack your brain and try to think of every character that we've seen so far in the book, it's like, why would any of them do that? Almost every character is way too occupied with the siege. So it's like, who would take their time and do this, and why? Doesn't have any. It only ever so slightly pertains to the siege. Their research has almost nothing to do with what they're actually doing, or like with the current problems facing Luthadel right now. So, but yeah, I just wanted to note it because I think it is something small, but it's very, very strange of like how that was able to happen, and then that branches out, like I said, to who and why. So, and then the last thing, put my book down because there's only one more thing. Like I said, the ending, the very, 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 very ending with Sazed. So to recap, Sazed lied to them. We know it's a lie before Sazed said it was a lie. He didn't say it was a lie, but the very last paragraph of this part was from Sazed's perspective. So he was thinking about the lie he just told and the lies he's gonna have to continue to tell. But we knew this because he had the secret meeting with the rest of Kel's crew. Kind of took advantage of the situation too. So again, he definitely feels guilty, but it's like, it's what I gotta do. So he just straight up told Vin and Elend that he knows where the Well of Ascension is. It is up north. It is in Terrace. Through my research, I've gathered this, all that stuff. Knowing that Vin is chomping at the bit to figure out what happened at the Well of Ascension. Got her to want to go, convinced Elend to go and say, everything's fine here. It's not fine, but the way Sazed says it's like, Penrod's gonna give, he's gonna give the city to Straff anyway. You guys won't be here. We can hide. We're very good at that. There's no reason for our people to die. Straff doesn't even want to he doesn't want to just commit genocide to everyone here. He mostly just hates us, and if you're not here and we hide, then there's nothing he can do. He just really wants the A-team when it comes down to it. So everything will be fine here. It won't be ideal, but you don't have to worry about us being slaughtered or anything like that. And you can go and find the well, and once you get there, you can figure out the powers and hopefully come back, help us out. He even mentions maybe Vin will. Similar effect will happen to Vin as happened to Lord Ruler, and maybe she'll be changed and she can help us, help the world. If you don't take the power but you release it, maybe that should theoretically help save the entire world. Maybe even get rid of the ash, take the mist away, beat the deepness, make the sun not red, all that stuff. Sazed is Sazed just can't stop lying in this moment. He's just saying whatever he can to appeal to both Vin's desires as well as Elend's desires. When it comes to the city, and so he does very well. Realize obviously he's lying. He's even going to forge a map for them. I think there's a couple things that is very interesting that will possibly come out of this. One, we're assuming Luthadel is not fine. We're assuming Luthadel is not going to end up the way that he says it's going to. What he's explaining to Vin and Elend is the best case scenario. Luthadel is going to fall, And I'm not as confident in Sazed's words that Straff is just going to be like, yeah, we got it. you know, could be wrong. I mean, again, I mean, especially with Straff and the Kolos, it's like, we don't really know what's going to happen here. Even with the Kolos coming, it's like, they could not be controlled. They could just murder everybody. So very optimistic about that. Also, the well, we know it's not there. Now, there's a chance that the ultimate coincidence could happen in this story, and the well actually is there. Sazed didn't know that. He's just, he's just saying stuff. The well could be there, and then we could actually get some sort of big climax. Again, the next part we read will be the end. So we're assuming they reached the well in this book. The book is called The Well of Ascension. Maybe not. I don't know. It would make sense. Yeah, and then also aside from that, we'll hopefully see the Terrace people, see more of their people, see what's going on there. Learn more about Kelsier and where he came from. But assuming, even though the book is called what it's called, assuming that Sazed is lying, because he is, and the well is not actually there, the biggest coincidence in the world does not occur. Frustration will happen, to say the least. Vin and Elend will spend way too much time searching for it, and they'll realize it's not there, and they'll come back and they'll be upset at Sazed, who hopefully will still be alive. I guess, in his case, we hope he's dead, because if he's not, Vin will come back and kill him. Not really. I don't think Vin would ever hurt him, but it's the sentiment that I guess I'm putting out there. I don't know. I mean, again, Sazed explained the best case scenario. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I think a lot of people are going to die. Yeah. Very sad, too. But again, like, Sazed, from his perspective, I can definitely understand why he did this. Because, like, we can't have you here when this falls, because when it happens, we know who you guys are, and you guys are going to want to fight, and we don't think that they can take all of them. 2 armies, one of them especially being Kolos, it's like Sazed sees them, Vin more so, but Vin and Elend as 2 people who need to survive, who need to be here, and not here in Luthor, obviously, but here to make changes, here to help progress the sky and just society as a whole forward, which is what he was kind of explaining in his secret meeting with them. Them here dying doesn't help anybody. We'll see though. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. But that is the part. That's pretty much everything I had to say. Pretty much all the big stuff that I noted. So yeah, that's it. Next week we are finishing the book. Just to be specific, I closed my page. Just to be specific, we are covering chapters 49 through 59. That includes the epilogue as well. Just because, 49 through 59, but also the epilogue, because I'm sure there's something there. There was something big in the last epilogue, right? Wasn't that like Vin and Sazed talking about stuff or whatever? I don't know. But yeah, so we'll finish the book. That'll be a good time. And yeah, let me know what you thought of this part. Anything I missed, any big stuff. Predictions for next time too. Like, what do you think's gonna happen? Again, I'm like, they're gonna go. They're not gonna find anything. They might learn stuff about the Terrace people. I don't know. I'm assuming we're not gonna see a lot of the journey. I feel like we're just gonna like hard cut to them like arriving at Terrace. I don't think the journey is important. Maybe it is. I honestly don't remember. And then I feel like we'll be knee deep in whatever's happening. Straff coming first, Kolos coming first, whatever happens there. I feel like it'll be a pretty harsh jump cut. But yeah, that is it. Excited for the next part. yeah, let's do it. Let's see what happens at the end of Well of Ascension.